I just want the anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-West crowd to understand something. You're going to have to come through me and millions of people just like me, and you're not going to make it. You think your stupid little podcast is going to change the world like hell it is, not if I and everybody else have something to say about it. We cancel stuff all the damn time.
Tucker Carlson has turned himself into a conspiracist and a crank and a pathological liar. Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders. Tucker Carlson has attacked President Trump as a cover-up artist for sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on behalf of Israel and Mossad, because, of course, Tucker's a coward. Tucker Carlson has stated that President Trump has undermined America First and MAGA by attacking Iran, giving in to neocon ghouls like Mark Levin. Tucker Carlson acts as an ideological launderer for other people's evils. He's a master of gaslighting. Tucker Carlson, of course, brings on pro-Hamas voices episode after episode after episode. The instances are almost limitless. America needs a robust conservative organization based on principle and ideas, not personal loyalty to bad actors like Tucker.
Interviews Putin. He interviews the lowest of scum, genocidal maniacs from the face of the earth. They need to be afraid of regular Americans like you and me. They need to be afraid of us.
They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. You don't get to wrap your psychotic, mental, unhinged, Nazi, Klan, jihadist bullshit around American patriotism.
This week, Skyline High School in Ann Arbor advanced to the volleyball championship tournament with a boy on the girls' volleyball team, and Democrats are stalking the journalist exposing this fact. Jocelyn Benson's husband has a conflict of interest with a giant data center being built in Saline against the wishes of the population. And the Michigan ACLU defends doxing ICE agents in the name of illegal immigrants' civil rights. Those are all interesting topics, but if Republicans don't get their act together, we will be wiped out in the 2026 election. And the crooked, corrupt Democrat Party will get away with all of this and a lot more, which is why it is absolutely critical we course correct right now. The results of the last week election proved that. And again, it wasn't, I mentioned this in my show on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever it was, but it wasn't just blue states, as some of these commenters claim. It was an across-the-board catastrophe for Republicans. And it wasn't just in Virginia, and it wasn't just in New York City, although that was a race between two Democrats, principally in New York. But Republicans had a terrible result in Pennsylvania and in Georgia. Honest pollsters like Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen and Richard Bears have been saying all week long, if you guys look at all of the elections, it was a categorically awful election for Republicans. And yet, instead of correcting course, the Republican Party this week exploded into a civil war. And from the clips we just saw, that was Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, obviously. But it's not just them. And in fact, Dinesh D'Souza could throw in there. But more importantly, though, we saw the same thing coming from people like Ted Cruz. And here's the thing. Here's the problem. You know, Mark Levin, you saw in that clip, he says, if you want to be relevant, you got to get through me. Well, here's the thing, Mark. Tucker Carlson does not have an election to win next year. The Republicans do. And if the Republicans don't win the election next year, Trump is cooked. And not just Trump, you know, but we're talking the people of the state of Michigan. We're talking our midterm elections, which historically have not gone very well for Republicans. Jay says, maybe I'm just not paying attention, but I never see Democrats doing this to each other. Well, that's true. That's very true. Although the Democrats do take out their grievances in the primaries. You know, Zoran Mamdani just beat Andrew Cuomo, two Democrats, in the New York mayoral election. The Democrat Socialists of America have gradually pushed out the moderates in the Democrat Party. But you're right, Jay. They keep it to the primaries, and they get together in the general. And they have an advantage over the Republicans on this, because fundamentally the power structure in America leans left, right? The Democrats are the ones that are always promising more government, more spending, So the Democrat Party doesn't have a lot to be at war with itself over. The Republicans generally do, because if you want limited government, the problem is when Republicans take power, they don't want to cut the size of government. They want to expand government. They don't want to admit that. They'll say, "Oh, we'll cut the government here where we don't like it, but we'll expand it in, say, the military." They'll always want to spend more money, because spending money equals getting money for your election, equals special interest spending. But that being said, the issue that Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin are going to war with Tucker Carlson over is not the size of government. It's Israel. That's what the New York election was about too. Even though they will trip over themselves not to say, no, it's not about Israel. It was about communism. And again, see my remarks earlier this week. Yes, obviously Zoran Mandami is a communist. Obviously he's going to be a complete disaster for the city of New York. But why Republicans going to bat? Why did Republicans go to bat for Andrew Cuomo, the lockdown governor of New York, the guy that pioneered the policy that Whitmer copied of putting COVID patients into nursing homes? And the reason is because Israel is losing popularity and power in both parties, the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. And for people like Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, this is the only thing that matters to them. It's Israel first. And to the forces behind them, Israel is all that matters. Miriam Adelson does not care about Trump being a successful president. She cares about Israel. And this whole and don't get me wrong, Nick Fuentes, my take on Nick Fuentes is he says whatever will get the most attention on Nick Fuentes. But as Glenn Greenwald said, if Nick Fuentes kept every view he has, but just supported U.S. financing and arming of Israel, virtually no prominent Republican would have a problem with him. And that is what, time after time, week after week, the Trump administration proves. It can't stop talking about all the great things it does for the foreign nation of Israel. And this is absolutely causing a problem with a coalition that was based on America first. Just this week, let me pull this up here. This was let me see if I can find the right tab here. This was Trump this week. Here we go. Let me just share the screen. This was a Trump posted on Truth Social this week. I just held a great call between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, no kidding, and President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is the first country of my second term to join the Abraham Accords, the first of many. This is a major step forward in building bridges across the world. Today, more nations are lining up to embrace peace and prosperity through my Abraham Accords. We will soon announce a signing ceremony to make it official, and there are many more countries trying to join this club of strength. So much more to come in uniting countries for stability and growth. Real progress, real results. And then this is some kind of joke. Blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, this is what Trump posts on November 7th. 3 days after the election. Where is the course correction? Where is the, oh yeah, we should be caring more about America. J.D. Vance was just at a Turning Point event. Actually, I think it wasn't a Turning Point event. I think it was actually his X feed. He actually posted on X. He says, yeah, we do need to focus more on the United States. Oh, you think? You think the America First Coalition cares about Kazakhstan? Oh, goody, goody. Kazakhstan has joined the Abraham Accords. Isn't Trump amazing, folks? Look, it's the first country in Trump's second term to get to join the Abraham Accords. That's what I voted for, didn't you? And that's why we have this now. This is, let me put this up so you can see. Trump's net approval ratings, first in the beginning of the term, February 2nd to March, February 20 to March. And this is around the time of his big speech to Congress, which for my money was the best moment in Trump's second term. This was right before he went off the cliff. And look at these numbers compared to the numbers you have a week and a half ago. 18 to 20. Obviously, the female line has collapsed catastrophically across the board. But the young people, look at this. 18 to 29 females went from -5 to -45. Boys went from 30% plus to 5% minus. And this is what Mark Mitchell posts. He says, "This is stunning. Yes, young women like Trump least, but the story here is that he's completely lost the youth. They were happiest when the system was being dismantled." And that was right. He's right. That was the big thing in the election last year. Was we have to stop the Biden regime. We have Trump's going to shake things up. Trump is going to everything that we thought we were going to get in the first term. We thought we were really going to get this time in the second term. Trump was going to really fight back against the Washington establishment in his second term. And instead, it's been, and you can see these comments here. They need to destroy the filibuster and act as degenerates. Game over. Mark Mitchell. Thune already cut a deal with the Democrats because he thinks they're not going to. And I could go on. The reaction just since this past Tuesday. Here's a clip from Trump, and Richard Bear says, "Oh my God, what else is left to say?" Here's the clip. Let's play it.
Men and women, they talk about the cost of Thanksgiving and the cost of living through Thanksgiving and enjoying Thanksgiving. For Joe Biden, it was 25% more than it is for me at a later time. Our energy costs are way down. Our groceries are way down. Everything is way down. And the press doesn't report it. The press reports whatever the con people say. You know, I call the Democrats con men and women. They make up numbers. But when you look at 25% reduction in costs for Thanksgiving.
Anyway, this goes on for a moment, but you get the idea. Trump apparently thinks that you can just tell people, you guys are doing great. Food costs are way down. Energy costs are way down. Really? Are they? Are people actually seeing this? Because I don't think they are. Here's another one. This is a letter that Mark Mitchell got from Rasmus. Let me see if I can make this any bigger. It's giving me trouble trying to make. Oh, here we go. Let me do this. Hey, Mark, I followed your election coverage, yada, yada. Trump has done some good things, closing the border, deportations, repudiation of woke are accomplishments. However, we need more on the home front. This is the thing every single person is saying. All Trump talks about is foreign policy. We wanted America first and to drain the swamp, and we have been disappointed on both fronts. Everyone I know under 50 has a deep skepticism of Israel. Even those who initially supported them after 10/7 are disgusted by their behavior and the slavish devotion so many of our politicians have toward them. Yeah, a genocide will do that. The mass slaughter of millions of people will cause you reputational harm. We do not trust the government or its departments. Remember Doge? Whatever happened with that? What's happened is we're now starting month 2 of the shutdown. We'll talk about that in a moment. U.S. aid was gutted, but there has to be a bill passed, or the next Dem will just fund their silly or outright subversive programs. Again, the lack of will to do big government cuts during this shutdown is cowardly. Well, Russ vote is trying to, and the courts are trying to block it. But, well, anyway, we'll come back to the shutdown in a moment here. A lot of people lost faith after the Epstein debacle, especially since answers and accountability were promised. Instead, it was totally swept under the rug, and now it looks like Trump is guilty, which not saying he is, he probably isn't, but they're protecting Israel. Total unforced error. More about that came out this week too, by the way. Plus a ton of other little things. If Trump is so sure 2020 was stolen, why is there no massive national investigation? Why is there no bill in Congress to standardize voting in every state? It may not be possible, but you have to try, he says, this guy. And he goes on. Let me. This is a great one. I'm gonna read page 2. Here we go. This is page 2. Scott Bessent, who I like, okay, I don't agree with that, has said multiple times, Wall Street had its day. It's time for Main Street to have its day. It sure doesn't look like that's the case. The market's at an all-time high, and our biggest companies are laying off tens of thousands of people. H-1Bs must be addressed as well. There is no need for them. It's simply a scam on educated American workers. On the economy in general, I was not expecting a miracle in 10 months, but everyone knows housing prices are a major issue. Yet there is no national plan to address this or to stop BlackRock and company from buying up a third of the single-family homes. By the way, Trump has since come out with an answer on this just yesterday. Absolutely brilliant. 50-year mortgages. That was Trump's answer. And you can imagine how that went over. Here's Matt Walsh. This just means your house will be owned by the bank until you die and after. We don't need 50-year mortgages. Get the illegal immigrants out of our country. Give America back to Americans. Here's another take. Americans, we'd really like some affordable housing. Trump, best I can do is an extra 20 years of usury. Yeah, and there's been a lot of takes like that because, yeah, 50-year mortgages. I mean, first off, like if you have any conservative blood in your body, if you have one conservative bone in your body, why how is it the role of the government to offer home financial products? Like why does the Trump administration have anything to do with 50-year mortgages? Like shouldn't the banking industry have 50-year mortgages if they think it's economically sound to do so? Where did this whole notion that Trump can just come up with an idea, 50-year mortgages, and that makes it a plausible thing? But besides that, what's a 50-year mortgage? It means you're paying far, far more in interest for a much longer period on your house while your bank still owns it. Great. I mean, just lovely. Here's another one. Emerald Robinson. Trump voters, arrest somebody. Trump, we're cutting costs on Ozempic. Trump voters, arrest somebody. Trump, buy your pills at Trump RX. Trump voters, arrest somebody. Trump, Gaza will get beachfront condos. Trump voters, arrest somebody. Trump, AI is great. Yeah, this just goes on, and it's just. I mean, I could look at 100 posts like this. But anyway, getting back to this comment here. That's why Mamdani won, this guy says. His policies aren't for the poor. The poor already get free stuff. It's for people who are on the lower end of middle class 5 years ago, but now feel destitute due to inflation. By the way, so there is this huge, I mean, obviously Mamdani is anti-Israel and Cuomo is pro-Israel, and that was a big issue. But it wasn't the issue that Mamdani raised in his campaign. It was the issue his opponents raised. I watched a video with someone in New York who said, in the primary, I got literally like 5 mailings every single day saying Mamdani's going to kill all the Jews. We need to support Cuomo because he's against the genocide of Jewish people. Like the opposition made this an issue in the New York race. But the problem is, and I did see someone made a comment about this on X, the 2028 election might turn into a referendum on capitalism. And frankly, Trump saying the economy is doing great when people feel like it's not, them having these gigantic Great Gatsby style parties at Mar-a-Lago, Trump knocking down the east wing of the White House to build a new ballroom, all this stuff looks really decadent. It's a horrible, horrible look. And so you've got Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, who just got a $40 billion U.S. taxpayer-funded bailout for Argentina, partying at Mar-a-Lago with his chainsaws. This is a bad, bad look. And it's continued all the way into this week. Again, the stock market is an all-time high. Something has to give while concentration is out of hand. And by the way, a lot might happen between now and the next election. It's not as if, some people in Wall Street wouldn't want there to be a Democrat win in the next election or the 2028 election. Don't have the tools to cause financial problems. But as it is, every time when Trump comes out and says energy costs are way down, stocks are way up, your 401k is doing great, and people are looking like, I actually buy groceries. I actually pay my electric bills. They haven't gone down much at all. In fact, if they have at all, I continue to be shocked every time I go to the grocery store and have to pay $3 for a dozen eggs. Prices haven't gone down. I've like barely bought lunch meat for the past year because it's like $12 a freaking pound these days. Anyway, I can see why people don't mind the word socialism anymore, this person says. How can you tell people socialism is somehow worse than our current system? People are willing to listen to any idea that shakes up the status quo and gives them some relief. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Elections are very often about throw the bums out. And the only time it's not is when they're like, we really like our guy. Like, who's the most popular leader in the world right now? Nayib Bukele in El Salvador. You know why? Because he's taking the gang members and throwing them in prison. And crime is way down in Venezuela, in El Salvador. If Trump just did that, just focused on that, we're going to stop crime in the United States. We're going to clean up our cities and make them beautiful again. Something Tucker keeps pointing out too, by the way. We want to see more plans for the American people. We don't want to go back to an America run by the Dems, or worse, the traditional pre-Trump Republican Party, which is what it looks like is happening. So far, Trump has been a foreign policy president, and his want to stop foreign countries is admirable. However, we want America first and to make America great again. And as Rasmussen said, this is why Republicans are in really, really bad shape. Aaron's Rod says, you read hundreds of these posts because you're in a Groyper echo chamber from Pakistan. Sorry, Aaron. Unfortunately, Mark Mitchell is a professional whose job is to keep a finger on the pulse of the Republican Party voters in America. That's what pollsters do. That's what Richard Barris does. These are pro-Trump academics. These are people whose job is to say, how will the Republicans do in the next election? What do people think about the Republicans? This is not a Groyper echo chamber. And by the way, I don't even really know what Groyper means. I assume it just means a follower of Nick Fuentes, whatever that means, which I think changes from day to day. But the issue is, the Groypers are not up in the next election. Republicans are. And if the message that the voters hear is, A, we need to drive all the people out of the party who say this America first crap, from Mark Levin, because America first means Israel first. And that's what Ted Cruz is saying. Then Republicans are the ones that get wiped out. And frankly, I don't care if Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham lose their next election, but I care about people like Laura Perry who are running for state house and are going to lose down ballot because of this idiocy happening in the national stage. And by the way, it is absolutely an operation to make Nick Fuentes popular. Here's a perfect comment from this guy on X. He says, if the New York Times loves you, they'll find the best picture ever taken of you and make you look heroic. If they hate you, they'll find the worst one and pay an artist who hates you to slash your face into slices. And there you've got Barry Weiss on the New York Times, who they've sliced your face to make her look really ugly and evil looking. And then they take Nick Fuentes. Look at the headline here. Nick Fuentes was Charlie Kirk's bitter enemy. Now he's becoming his successor. That's what the New York Times wants to happen. Look at that photo of Nick. I've never seen Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes, if you actually look at Nick Fuentes, he looks a lot like Ben Shapiro. He sounds a lot like Ben Shapiro too. It's uncanny. But the New York Times is trying to make Nick Fuentes out to be the next Charlie Kirk, because that's what happened. They murdered Charlie Kirk, and now they want to co-opt the Turning Point USA movement, which, as has been extensively documented by people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk himself had a lot of concerns about the Israel lobby. But anyway, Jay Mashad says, it's a year until the midterm election without strong domestic results nationally. I'm already feeling gloomy about getting out the vote next year. Last time Whitmer was reelected only 2 years after her disastrous actions during the pandemic. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Jay. That's exactly right. And, that's why it's so important that we pay attention to these things. Here's another one. This guy says, I'm a Trump guy. Voted for him 3 times. What do you think, Aaron's Rod? Is he lying? Is he a Groyper? I'm a Trump guy. Voted for him 3 times. I'd like this guy to vote Republican next year, don't you? Maybe you don't like whatever he thinks about Israel, but don't you want him to vote Republican? I'm a Trump guy, he says. I voted for him 3 times, donated to his campaign, spent countless hours of my life making memes in his honor. I want nothing more than for him to succeed. But this golden age rhetoric ain't it. The job market sucks, shit is too expensive, and it's ringing hollow with people. I realize things are looking up, and I'm convinced they will straighten out. But spiking the football without scoring a touchdown is a bad look, especially after the election. There's a ton of work to do before the midterms. Less talky, more walky, please. Thank you for your attention to this matter. P.S. Can't wait for the inevitable unfollowed reply simply for voicing my opinion on an app where people voice their opinions. Yeah, look, folks, I'd probably have a lot more annoyance if I was a loyal Trumpster and telling people how great things are going and things are really looking up. But this is the reality. This is what people are talking about. This is what the election results bared out last week. This is what the polls are saying will happen unless there is a course correction. And the problem is exactly obvious. All these people are saying it. They can't say it more plainly. Trump keeps talking about this foreign policy stuff. He just met again, just like literally yesterday with Viktor Orban, talking about we want to have a peace deal in Budapest. I'm gonna meet with Putin. Yeah, that's all great. This has been taken care of in January. Instead, he actually canceled the meeting with Putin in Budapest, and now wants to have it later on. He's coming back to that. He's been going back and forth on the Ukraine war for the past 10 months. Now Russia's on the brink of a total victory, which they will all blame on Trump, of course, because he just could not walk away. Here's another one. So Charles Gasparino, a Fox Business anchor, says this. He says, I'm still baffled that Tucker Carlson's Nick Fuentes interview caused this much BS among conservatives. By the way, I don't think Tucker even should have interviewed Nick Fuentes, but as a journalist, Nick Fuentes is a guy with an audience, a bigger audience than Mark Levin has. And as a journalist, Tucker, and by the way, as this guy goes on to say, he says right here, I listened to it. It wasn't the cheerleading session that Tucker had been accused of. Yeah, he actually asked the guy some hard questions. He actually tried to reason with this idiotic, noxious, and unfortunately popular kid. This is the last thing we need to have a national conversation about with all that's going on. What we need to discuss is what are the cultural pressures that make this idiot Nick Fuentes so popular. Same with Andrew Tate. Begin by asking, why is the left normalizing so much dysfunction? Why is it a stigma to be a straight male? And God forbid if you're white, why are your unemployment opportunities limited? Why are you being taught in grade school you're inherently evil? Keep doing this and the Fuentes of the world will grow in popularity. Yeah, interesting questions. So here's what Richard Bears, again, a professional pollster, a pro-Trump pollster too, by the way, says, it's because this is completely astroturf. This is really about neocons and interventionists seeing the handwriting on the demographic wall and trying to co-opt MAGA. It's at the core about foreign policy and J.D. Vance, who they see not bombing people for lobbies when they want. Yeah, J.D. Vance has been known to have hesitations about a lot of this neocon stuff, and they're trying desperately to sabotage J.D. Vance running in 2028. They want Marco Rubio. They want a total Israel stooge in the White House in 4 years from now. The reality is, if Trump's policies don't start changing soon, there won't be a Republican of any kind in the White House in 2029. And that's how dangerous this is. Here's another one from Richard Bears. This was, again, yesterday. Charlie Kirk, he's responding to Scott Pressler. Scott Pressler posts on X. The thing that keeps playing over and over in my head is that Charlie Kirk was murdered. And Republicans didn't even show up to vote. Democrats didn't even lose anyone, and they turned out in full force. Yeah, and to that I would add, Democrats have not done a single thing to redeem themselves since 2024. Nothing. They haven't changed any of their policies. They haven't repudiated what they did with Joe Biden and then rigging the election to put we're just going to take Biden out and put Kamala Harris in. Absolutely no retreat on any of their policies. They've doubled down on everything. So the loss in this last election, which fortunately was very contained because it was only an off-year election, so there was not too much to lose. But nevertheless, the reasons why it went so poorly was not because Democrats suddenly got so good and the public suddenly started to really love the Democrats and love socialism. It's because the perception is that the Republicans aren't doing what they promised. So here's what Richard Barris responded to this. He says, Charlie's murder didn't motivate voters because the party's betrayals are so bad that many took his murder as evidence of their own leadership's weakness, cowardice, and constant failures. Just spoke to a guy with a freedom shirt at the gym. That was the shirt Charlie Kirk was murdered in. So a lot of people have these freedom shirts, and good on them for wearing them. He's not even voting for Michael Whatley as of now. Michael Whatley, the former RNC chair, now running for, I think, governor in North Carolina, or maybe U.S. senator. But Whatley, a genuine MAGA America First patriot, and the attitude is screw the GOP. That's again, folks. If you're watching this channel, you have a very high interest in politics, more so than the average voter does. The average voter is like, yeah. The new boss was the same as the old boss. Promised hope and change, didn't deliver it. That's one thing the Democrats are they're motivating the people about. No one will say Barack Obama didn't bring change. But here we are now into month 2 of the shutdown. And here's where we are on the shutdown. This is where the Senate Republicans Senate on the filibuster. A grand total of 9 out of 53 Republicans say, yeah, we should reform the filibuster. Why isn't Trump going after these people that are saying keep it in place? I mean, what's going to happen? Again, what's the end game here? Do Republicans have any end game with this shutdown besides caving to the Democrats? Because if they don't end the filibuster, that's all that's going to happen. What's going to happen when Thanksgiving air traffic starts to get snarled because of the shutdown? And then every American really does get pissed off. This is something that Trump should be paying attention to every single day, talking about every single day. He has actually now in the past few days been talking about this. And that's good. And funnily enough, this actually is one issue you could actually attack Rand Paul about, although he's of course attacking him for all the wrong reasons again. He's yelling at Rand Paul, complaining at Rand Paul about the fact that he didn't support suspending congressional pay until the shutdown is resolved. The problem is, well, first off, as Rand pointed out, constitutionally you can't. It's against the Constitution because the framers of the Constitution themselves had enough foresight to realize that you don't want to put congressional pay into play as a policy issue. Now, I can tell you, when I worked in Congress 12 years ago, you would not believe the number of bills that are tying things to congressional pay. I must have seen 100 of them. Every single time it was. And there was a shutdown when I was there, too. So it was often that. It was, we need to end congressional pay until the shutdown is over, or end congressional pay until Democrats pass gun control, or end congressional pay until there's a balanced budget amendment. They would do this constantly. Because it's an easy talking point. The reality is, for most members of Congress, congressional pay is not their primary income stream, and they can weather it. Just ask Nancy Pelosi. That's not her major income stream. But it is a talking point. It is posturing. But anyway, never mind all that. The point is, Trump should be hammering these people every single day. John Thune should be making them vote every day, but John Thune, of course, himself is not even in this. Where's John Thune on this chart? Is he even on here? Where's Thune? Yeah, keep in place. Thune's against reforming the filibuster. Make them vote every single day. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a Republican congressman in Michigan to browbeat about this. But you got to imagine that a lot of these lawmakers are going to take a lot of heat in their districts. Because, as I've pointed out over and over and over again, the whole notion that we can't end the filibuster because the Democrats would do bad things is absolutely moot, because the minute the Democrats can do it, they will. All we're doing by keeping the filibuster is preventing the Republicans from passing Trump's agenda. And frankly, the major reason they probably want to keep this in place is because they don't want to pass Trump's agenda. But if this doesn't get resolved, and soon, this is going to haunt us into the midterms. Aaron's Rod, I want to go back. Aaron's Rod also said something. This is actually before the stream started. It's not a civil war. Groypers are not Republicans. They're libertarians, as is Antifa. Well, first off, never mind the Groypers for a second. Aaron, how are Antifa libertarians? Antifa are commies. They are anarcho-communists. They're not libertarians. Libertarians are not violent people in black bloc. Now, okay, the capital L Libertarian Party, they got that. Who's that guy? The presidential nominee. That guy was a fruitcake. But generally speaking, no, man. Libertarians are like Ron Paul supporters like me. They're not Groypers. But as to this Groypers are not Republicans thing, the attitude Republican politicians normally have is, we want a big tent, we want votes, we want to win elections, therefore we want voters. So why is my title so inflammatory, as Jeffrey Lapointe asks? Because what we are seeing happening right now is in fact a full-blown Republican civil war. And the question ultimately is, where is General Trump going to take it? Because where he's taken it to this point is not good, folks. And here, by the way, this is another thing that happened this week. Let me play this clip. This is from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, posted this.
Buying something. We're solving life and death.
Hold on. Here we go.
Death problem. We're not just buying something. We're solving life and death problems for our warfighters. We're not building for peacetime. We are pivoting the Pentagon and our industrial base to a wartime footing. Building for victory should our adversaries FAFO.
And again, he can't help himself but use those absolutely cringy memes, FAFO. But yes, we're pivoting to war footing, folks. The president, the big peacemaker, the guy who keeps running on, I support peace. I'm a big peacemaker. Meanwhile, his war secretary, we're gonna prepare for a war footing. We're gonna go all out for war, which of course what the neocons always want. That's what we always get, no matter who we vote for. It's like the saying goes, no matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. By the way, Trump seems to have accidentally started a nuclear arms race this week. What happened was, I talked about this on the show the other day, but I'll restate this. So Russia develops these new nuclear propulsion systems, which can be used with nuclear weapons. So they developed this missile that is and there's two kinds. There's one that's called the Burevestnik, which is this missile that flies around in the air and has a miniature nuclear reactor for an engine, which means it has like infinite fuel and can just fly around the ocean, sitting and waiting for as long as it needs to be. And then there's another one called the Poseidon, which is, again, a nuclear propelled torpedo that can cause a tidal wave, a tidal wave of radioactive nuclear water. These nuclear super weapons. But the thing was, yes, they're nuclear capable, but that what was not being tested was not the nuclear weapon. What was being tested was the propulsion system. Trump apparently did not get that distinction. And he says, because the world is testing nuclear weapons again, we need to test nuclear weapons again. And now Russia comes back and says, we asked the president to clarify. He did not clarify. He will not tell us what he means. We have to assume he is talking about restarting nuclear weapons tests, and therefore so must we. So it's hard to understate how dangerous this is, a nuclear arms race. I mean, I am not even old enough to remember when we were doing nuclear testing in the Cold War. But the thing is, all these anti-nuclear weapons treaties, they were for the benefit of the United States. Because, well, first off, because the whole world now has better access to nuclear weapons than they ever used to. They have to worry about Iran doing nuclear testing, Saudi Arabia. I mean, nuclear technology is more than 100 years old, folks. It's not as hard to get as it used to be. Plus, who has the advantage in nuclear technology right now in an arms race? Russia already has more sophisticated weapons than we do. China, as Trump himself says, is catching up rapidly. Trump keeps saying we have the most nuclear weapons, then Russia, then China's a distant third, but catching up. Trump said this multiple times this week. It's not even true. Russia has more weapons than we do. They have newer weapons than we do. That shouldn't even matter, honestly, because in a nuclear exchange, we all die. It doesn't matter if Russia has the Burevestnik or the Poseidon. We have enough nuclear weapons to destroy Russia, and they have enough to destroy us. And that's all that happens. That's all that matters in the end. But when you have multiple nations conducting nuclear tests, the incentive for accidents to happen is enormous. This is extremely dangerous. I mean, that was one of the things I supported Trump for, because he was the only candidate in the primary or the general talking about the threat of nuclear war. And now he is the main driver towards nuclear war. James Shout says, can't Hegseth's comments be reasonably interpreted as peace through strength? I mean, reasonably, I would say maybe charitably. But what does that mean, a war footing? You know, to be on a war footing means martial law. To be on an actual war footing is not what Russia is on with respect to Ukraine, right? War footing means everybody is mobilized. The entire war footing is what we were at in World War II, where we were building thousands of bombers. We were building thousands of nuclear weapons in the Cold War. That's a war footing. So is Hegseth just using his words carelessly? Probably. But the rest of the world sees this rhetoric, and they reasonably interpret it as the United States wants to fight a war with us. That's where this is going, and that's how people perceive it. So, hold on, what was I looking at here? Sorry, I thought I was looking at a clip I forgot to play, but it's something else. This is the thrust of where things are at right now. Meanwhile, by the way, I gotta throw in one more thing. This will give you guys some clue about where we're at here. So Russia just announced a presidential decree from Vladimir Putin changing the rules for obtaining Russian citizenship and residence. From now on, many categories, such as those applying through family ties, can only do so after signing a 1-year military service contract. And this is how Russia describes it. This is from a Russian source. It says, this is not bureaucracy, it is a message. Russia no longer needs passive settlers. It needs people ready to serve, defend, and become part of the nation in spirit and duty. Citizenship is no longer a transaction, but a commitment. These changes fit into a broader migration policy concept for 2026 to 2030, which seeks balance between labor needs, social stability, and national security. The goal is clear: fewer rootless labor migrants, more loyal citizens and compatriots, people who share Russian values and want to live here as part of this civilization. This is not a closure of doors, but a filter. Russia will always welcome those who respect her traditions, laws, and people, but those who come only to take will find the easy days over. To be Russian means to stand with Russia, not just in words, but in action. Wow. Why didn't the Republican Party think of this? To become an American, you must serve a year in service of the American nation. Maybe not even militarily, but you must serve. To become an American, you must serve. How is it that nobody thought of this in America? How is that not Trump's policy? How is that not the Republicans' immigration policy? Oh, you want to be an American citizen then put up. Amazing. The things that Trump could be doing if only his administration was geared towards America first and not what it has been, which has been constantly, day after day, week after week, these ridiculous foreign policy intrigues. We need to defend Christians in Nigeria, Trump says. What kind of police action is that supposed to lead to? And Trump says there's a genocide of Christians in Nigeria, which is actually complete bullshit. You know, the Boko Haram target lots of people, not just Christians. Why would Trump even float that out there? He's talking about a war with Venezuela that nobody asked for. We might have been happy to see military action in Mexico. Maybe. Thomas May says, I agree in some ways, but is this what Ron Paul would say? Probably not, but Ron Paul's not running, man. In fact, speaking of 2028, no indication that Rand Paul will run. No indication that Thomas Massie will run. I did see a post. Some people are starting a rumor that Marjorie Taylor Greene might run for president. I say bring her on. Because even if she has no shot against the J.D. Vance Trump juggernaut, she might do what Ron Paul did in 2008 and 2012 and be a voice for America first and pull the administration in that direction while it's still possible to. So what Ron Paul would say, Thomas, he would say all the things that he's been saying about these outrageous wars that we're fighting. So, yeah, he might not agree with Trump's America First immigration policy. In fact, I remember Ron Paul was not a fan of the wall. Well, it turns out America is. So there's that. Ron Paul might not be right on every single issue under the sun anyway. But on the big stuff, he broadly has been proven right. In fact, there was I don't want to spend the time digging through my X feed here, but I did see Ron did have an episode of his show just recently where he was talking about how Trump has, well, all the same things I've been talking about, that Trump has not been doing the things he was campaigning on doing, and instead doing the things that do not lead to popular success on the home front. And yeah, it's buried in my X feed someplace. But anyway, yeah, I miss Ron Paul having a voice in the Republican Party and on the national stage. And unfortunately, I don't think JD Vance really will, because JD Vance, kind of by the nature of his job, he has to protect his boss. You know, that's the way it goes. So Vance has been saying lots of things he shouldn't be saying, like attacking Thomas Massie for no legitimate reason, things like that. But you know, it is what it is. So, anyway, yeah, the wars and the funding thereof. Yeah, we have to look at least a few months into the future and see, where are these things going? Where is Trump's conflict in Venezuela going? I can't imagine. I mean, I'd love to imagine Trump calls this off. It was a mistake from the get-go. You have this absolute nutcase, Maria Machado, whatever her name is. By the way, here's a clip of her.
And this is amazing.
Hold on, let me remove this. In fact, here, let's play this for a second. This is at some American Business Forum. This is the woman that just got the Nobel Peace Prize, talking about basically she's going to turn over her country to the United States. Here, let's just for a second, listen to this.
Amazing, super exciting for me. We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity.
You know what? The better way to watch this is with the volume off. Just look at her eyes, look at the expressions on her face. As she's just salivating over the idea of selling out her country to America's business interest, as if it's that simple, right? This is the neocons always. We'll just go in. They'll welcome us as liberators. We'll take their oil, and it'll be great. It'll be great. What could possibly go wrong? This was something that Trump had no reason to start in the first place. He has no easy way out of. Yeah, Thomas says first move of hers will be to move Venezuela's embassy to Jerusalem. She did say that. Yep, that she's an Israel firster too. Of course she is. Yeah, okay, let's get her off the screen. That's enough of that. So Trump has to stop with this foreign policy stuff. Walk away. I mean, again, let it never be said he didn't have choices. But even now he could walk away. So he finally met with Hungary's Viktor Orban, and Orban says Ukraine can't win. Duh, Ukraine can't win the war. And then Trump says there's no chance at all. He says, well, I mean, you could have a miracle. Orban, you shouldn't have said that, buddy. Trump believes in miracles. It's a miracle he wasn't assassinated. Now he thinks Ukraine can win. Ukraine's not going to win the war. In fact, it's been another absolutely disastrous week for Ukraine. It's just heartbreaking to see how many Ukrainians have been killed in a completely stupid war because the United States and NATO are just they are just compelled to do all they can to harm Russia, and all the dead Ukrainian lives mean nothing. It's for the point of hurting Russia. That's all it's been about. That's all it ever was about. They don't care about Ukraine. They want to hurt Russia, and it hasn't succeeded. And this war has just festered, and it's festering, and it's gonna be a disaster when Russia wins the war. And what's Trump gonna do? Escalate? Break his America First promise even more? Get us into more wars? He's gotten to the point. He has been in this neocon trap. They've had him, and he's been writhing in it for months now. And even now, the best thing to do is just walk away from that damn war, because the election's only getting closer and closer and closer. But it's Israel, it's Ukraine, it's Europe, it's Nigeria. Why? It's Venezuela. Why? It's Kazakhstan. Why? Who cares? The American people don't know where Kazakhstan is. It's the big country next to Russia. That's not China, by the way. That's not important. It should be all Trump every single day should be the American people. We need to do more for them. Do more for them. This shutdown. He should be talking about the shutdown every single day. He should be waging war with these left-wing activist judges and with Antifa. I mean, we've seen starts of these things, declaring Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Okay, where's the arrests? There needs to be more follow-through. Every single day should be about that. Not this crazy gaslighting of America is doing so great. We're doing so great. Energy costs are down. Food costs are down. If you don't feel the prosperity, that's your fault, America. This is exactly the worst attitude to have. And this is the attitude that Trump has been expressing this is his reaction to the last election is Americans just haven't heard from me enough how great we are doing. No. You Americans need to see you fighting for them every single day. That's what Trump has to do. It's what all the Republicans have to do. And they're not doing it. Instead, we have a House that hasn't even sworn in a member elected, I think months ago now, at least weeks ago, I think maybe months ago now, because Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't want to have a vote on Thomas Massey's discharge petition to release the Epstein files. What a terrible look. Thomas May, we mentioned this earlier. Yeah, here's a 50-year mortgage for you. Yeah, bad start. If that was refocusing on what Americans want, that was a bad start. And you know, there have been some folks that have good ideas out there. In fact, I just saw who had a good summary of it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, here we go. Let me share this real quick here. This was Robert Barnes. Here's what he posted. A threat in a few ways. Trump can win back MAGA coalition with policies he can largely control at the executive branch. Unleash the Civil Rights Department, Antitrust Department, and Lawfare Division of DOJ to crack down on big tech, big ag, big pharma, big media, and the deep state. 2, restore food freedom by restoring the right to buy food directly from the farmer without a federal permission slip, end the ban on raw milk interstate sales. You should decide your own food, not the government. Bring back medical freedom by ending the special immunity for big pharma. Make them liable for all injuries caused by their products. Support Brooke Jackson's whistleblower case against Pfizer. Expand financial freedom by increasing access to capital for small enterprise, improving housing access, and taking on the Fed with a real audit for starters. Where's audit the Fed? Trump campaigned on that. Republicans control the House and Senate. Where's the votes? Where are the roll call votes on audit the Fed? Improved financial system plumbing through crypto expansion, etc. Extend political freedom by impeaching rogue judges, exposing lawfare networks, and truly fixing election integrity once and for all. Oops, I'm sorry. I meant to have that on the screen. but I just read this. So anyway, that was Robert Barnes. That's on X. Sorry, folks, I didn't realize I had Machado with her crazy eyes on there. Yeah, Jay says, "Where's the 50-state waiver for the Affordable Care Act?" Good question. These are things the administration could be doing and need to be doing, but the administration's on the wrong path, and of course, so is Con Inc., the conservative media, because they are too bent out of shape about the fact that Israel is unpopular. Well, Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin are not relevant in that space anymore. Candace Owens now has the #1 podcast. She's stoked about that as well. She should be. Tucker Carlson's, of course, doing it as an enormously popular show. By the way, Tucker Carlson invited, or no, who? Turning Point USA invited a debate between Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin. Levin said, "I'm not going to platform an anti-Semite, little chicken shit pussy." But that's just the way that these Israel firsters are. They're afraid of debate. That's why they resort to these left-wing cancellation tactics. That's what Mark Levin is all about, canceling. Ben Shapiro goes on CNN and whines on CNN about Tucker platforming these anti-Semites. People can go fuck themselves. But anyway, folks, a course correction is long overdue. And all I can say, and I've been saying this, I will continue to say it, we need to be speaking out about this. Because if we don't, a course correction won't come. Trump is surrounded by sycophants. He goes home to Mar-a-Lago. Everyone's partying. It's like the time of the century. They're having the time of their lives. Democrats don't party like it's 1999 when they're in power. They govern. Someone who I've never heard of on X made a comment, but I reposted it. It's almost as if Trump is intentionally trying to lose the midterms. I've been covering politics professionally since 2008, and I've never seen anything like this in my life. I haven't either. Aaron says, "Thanks for never sugarcoating the truth." Thank you, Aaron. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. And frankly, I have not been using my email list to be the bearer of bad news because I know it's just going to hurt the list. And I know my audience is dwindling because I keep saying these things. But the fact is, if you care about MAGA and you care about Trump and you want him to succeed and you want him to win, you have to call out the bad behavior when you see it. And we have now seen way too much bad behavior for way too long. It needs to be called out. If that is a Republican civil war, well, so be it. But that's where we are. So that will do it for us for tonight, guys. Sorry for another Debbie Downer stream, but the fact is the news ain't getting better. And hopefully it gets better soon. But, well, we'll see what happens. We'll see if they come up with any better ideas next week for some course correction. Until then, as always, thanks for all you guys do for liberty. Oh, and I forgot. I need to get better at this. Please, if you do like this content, do hit that like button. Do share it. It does actually help. So thanks again for all you guys do for liberty. And until next time, peace.